Luckily for you, I can. Were Hamlet and Horatio gay for each other? Let us take a look at the evidence. First, we need to preface with the idea that gay as an identity did not exist yet during Shakespeare's time period. It was the late 1800s and early 1900s before the concept of being gay existed. Let me explain what that means. Before that, queerness was not something that was inherent to, and this is, by the way, the Western Christian idea of things, okay, specifically, because we're looking at this from the perspective that Shakespeare would have been writing from. This is not the case for cultures around the world. There are a lot of cultures that had a lot of different views on queerness. This is Christianity. The precedence that has been set, and the belief during Shakespeare's time period, that sodomy was a sin you committed. There was no identity attached to it. Thinking about stealing something does not make you a thief. And that's not, thinking about stealing something is an impure thought, but it is not committing the sin. That was the same way that people saw queerness and gay sex. Sex that was not for procreation was the sin that people were committing when they were, that's what sodomy is, when they were doing queer acts. But being queer itself was not a sin because that wasn't a thing. People didn't think that that was something that you were. Now, just as there are people who would identify themselves as thieves or criminals, there were people who identified themselves as sodomites. But what it was a punishable crime that people also believed was a sin that got you sent to hell, right? Like, that's what it was. There was no concept of, like, coming out. There was no concept of identifying yourself with the things that you did, necessarily. Yeah, it was just a sin you committed. Now, was Shakespeare himself one? Probably. Can we say definitively how and why and when historical figures had sex? Not really. However, Shakespeare did write over 100 love poems to a man that weren't really intended to be published. He spent a lot of time away from his wife and his children, even though he went back there and very clearly loved them a lot, and he spent time around a lot of people who were considered sodomites. All of that, the whole stereotype about the theater was even more going on back then than it is now. So what makes people look at Hamlet and Horatio specifically and go, those two? You know what I mean? There are a lot of men in Shakespeare's plays. What is it about those two? The two major aspects of particularly this one, but any Shakespearean romance, is plot and language, right? How are these characters affecting each other and the people around them, and how are they speaking to each other, and what words are they using? That is incredibly important in Shakespeare. However, because Shakespeare is incredibly dense and incredibly complicated and 400 years old, a lot of these little contextual moments are lost, or often cut from the plays, because Hamlet's runtime is like 4 hours long. So a quick speed run on the Hamlet and Horatio plot specifically. Hamlet leaves, they are at college together. Hamlet leaves college because his father has died. Horatio comes eventually, for some reason, we don't actually know why, shows up at Hamlet's castle. Probably just because Hamlet hasn't come back to school. There's also a chance that Hamlet wrote him. We don't know. But he's there for ostensibly the funeral and the wedding and or whatever. Hamlet seems surprised to see him when he comes in. It is also the first time we see Hamlet experience joy in the play. I mean, there's a couple of different ways you could play that, I guess. Like, it could be just, like, pure disbelief that Horatio's there, but it doesn't... I feel like it makes the most sense if he's just excited his friend is there. Horatio lets Hamlet know that Marcellus and Bernardo, who are two of the watchmen, who is the first people that Horatio interacts with in the play, which also, like, raises questions about, like, Horatio's status. Why wouldn't he see the royal family first, or, like, be brought right into the royal family, if he's there ostensibly to visit Hamlet? Like, why is he talking to Marcellus and Bernardo before Hamlet even knows he's there? So there's people speculate that he's working class or whatever. It's also pretty likely, and implied that, Horatio is not Danish. This is not his royal family at all, actually. We're pretty sure. He's probably German, because Wittenberg is in Germany, but yeah. So he lets Hamlet know, hey, we saw the ghost of your dad, and, they all go out that night to go see the ghost. And then when the ghost beckons Hamlet away, Hamlet follows it, and the ghost speaks just to Hamlet. Horatio follows him. Hamlet tells Horatio, Marcellus, and Bernardo what happened, and then Marcellus and Bernardo and Horatio is the only character that Hamlet tells the truth to for the rest of the play. Horatio is Hamlet's person. He is the only person who knows that Hamlet is faking being mad. He is the only person who knows about the mousetrap, the play plot. The play is the thing wherein we'll catch the conscience of the king, right? Hamlet puts on a play that reenacts what his uncle did to his father to see his uncle's reaction, and Horatio is in on the plot. Even though he, like, really doesn't need to be. Like, Hamlet orchestrates the whole thing basically by himself. He just, like, wants Horatio to watch his uncle. And we'll get to what he says when he does it. Oh my god. That night, Hamlet accidentally kills Polonius. He ends up getting sent away. and Claudius tries to have him killed when he gets to England. Instead, they get attacked by pirates, and Hamlet gets a ride back to Denmark with the pirates. He writes Horatio a letter explaining the situation, where he ends it with one of the most romantic sentences of all time. We'll get there. He shows back up. Him and Horatio have a moment with the gravediggers in the graveyard. That's the Alastor Yorick scene. And then they find out that the grave that the gravediggers are digging is for Ophelia, who has died while Hamlet is gone. And the gravediggers have just been joking about the fact that she maybe shouldn't be being buried in the consecrated ground because she's probably committed suicide. Hamlet ends up fist fighting Ophelia's brother in her open grave. Guys, you need to get into Hamlet. It's really good. Horatio basically pulls him out. They agree to a fencing duel. Horatio helps Hamlet get prepped for the fencing duel. Laertes poisons the lances and also the winner's cup, so that if Hamlet loses, he dies. Claudius helps Laertes do this. If Hamlet loses, he dies. If Hamlet wins, he dies. Hamlet and Laertes both get stabbed by the foils, so they both get poisoned. And Gertrude drinks the winner's cup. Either because she was trying to protect her son or because she didn't know. And then everyone dies, and that's when Horatio says, "Good night, sweet prince." But before doing that, Horatio also tries to kill himself. So Shakespearean deaths are often also gendered. This is why Romeo and Juliet is really interesting. Romeo poisons himself, feminine death. Juliet stabs herself, masculine death. Hamlet is both poisoned and stabbed, because he is stabbed by a poison blade. And Horatio tries to poison himself. There are a lot of people who try and kill themselves in Shakespeare and who do kill themselves in Shakespeare. When it's two people, it is almost always because they are in love. We think about Romeo and Juliet, we also think about Antony and Cleopatra, okay? Now, how they talk to each other. And guys, please bear with me, I am speed running this. You may have heard sweet being Elizabethan through Victorian. That lasted for a while. Homosexual slang. Very true. That is very true. And Horatio calls Hamlet sweet prince actually kind of a lot. For the mousetrap scene, this is Hamlet explaining the mousetrap idea to Horatio, pulling him to the side. Here, sweet lord. And then Hamlet goes on this crazy little tangent about why would I flatter you? Talking about why would I flatter you? And then, this line, "Give me that man that is not passion's slave, and I will wear him in my heart's core, aye, in my heart of heart, as I do thee." Huh? Hey guys, how platonic is it, like scale of 1 to 10, to wear your bro in your heart's core, aye, in your heart's heart? Scale of 1 to 10. This is the letter that Hamlet writes after being kidnapped by pirates. There's 2 lines in here I want to point out, okay? "I have words to speak in thine ear, will make thee dumb, yet are they much too light for the bore of the matter. And farewell, he that thou knowest thine." Hamlet. He that thou knowest thine? I'm sorry. He that you know is yours? But with the intimate you version? What are you talking about? Which, by the way, this is the prince of a country who's, like, writing this guy being like, "I'm yours. And you know it." Huh! Putting that in writing. After he should have been dead. Anyway, this is the moment that Horatio tries to kill himself. And this is why I also mention Antony and Cleopatra, because this line here, it's the, "I am more an antique Roman than a Dane, here's yet some liquor left." So let's talk about that. So he specifies antique, right? Antiquity. Partly because antiquity is pre-Christianity. They killed themselves, didn't believe they were going to hell. It was seen as like a noble thing to do. And as a thing to do when you lost the person you loved. Hamlet is about the fact that if he kills himself, he won't go to heaven. And he doesn't know what comes after in the afterlife. And he's scared. Horatio says, "I don't care." And then also the Romans were famously gay. The Romans famously were really chill with having gay sex. So, Hamlet also does not let him kill himself, by the way. He actually gives Horatio a task to go tell his story so that Horatio, feels like he can't. I actually would love to talk even more about this. But I can only talk for 10 minutes on here, and I've been talking for about 10 minutes. If you have any questions about anything I said, please ask. Again, this was a very, very quick overview. I could talk about the queer history of the Tudor era and in Shakespeare for literal years, probably. Anyway, if you learned something cool today and you would like to leave a tip, all of those LINKSs are in my BAO, as per usual. And don't feel obligated to do that, obviously. I just have to, anyway.